Every great legend begins with a king, a conqueror, or dragon. But not this one. This is the story of a poor orphan from the streets of King's Landing who owned nothing but rusty armor, an old horse, and a dream. He wasn't born into nobility. He had no famous family name. Yet centuries later, songs would be sung about him. Kings would honor him. And one of the greatest knights in Westerosi history would simply be remembered as Ser Duncan the Tall, the hedge knight whose courage shaped the future of the Seven Kingdoms. Welcome to Histories of Westeros. If you enjoyed deep dives into George R.R. Martin's world, subscribe for more stories from A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, let us journey back nearly 90 years before Robert's Rebellion. Duncan's story began in the poorest district of King's Landing, Flea Bottom. It was a place of crime, hunger, and disease. Most children born there never escaped its streets. Duncan never knew his parents. He survived however he could, working odd jobs and sleeping wherever he found shelter. As he grew older, one thing became impossible to ignore. He was enormous, standing well over 6 feet tall and eventually nearly 7 feet. Duncan became one of the tallest men in Westeros. His size caught the attention of an aging hedge knight named Ser Arlan of Pennytree. Rather than leave the boy to starve, Ser Arlan took Duncan in as his squire. For years they wandered the 7 kingdoms together. They owned very little. Sometimes they earned coin in turns. Sometimes they fought as sworn swords. Sometimes they barely had enough food to survive. But Ser Arlan taught Duncan something more valuable than wealth: honor, mercy, humility, and above all, that a true knight protects the weak. Everything changed when Ser Arlan fell ill after riding through cold rain. The old knight died on the road. Duncan buried the only father he had ever known beneath an elm tree. Alone in the world, Duncan made a difficult decision. He would knight himself. Some fans still debate whether this technically made him a true knight. George R.R. Martin intentionally leaves the answer uncertain. But Duncan believed he had learned what it truly meant to be a knight. Though he continued wearing Ser Arlan's armor and rode toward the great tournament at Ashford Meadow, he hoped victory that would change his life forever. He had no idea destiny was waiting for him. On the road, Duncan met a bald-headed boy at an old inn. The child called himself Egg. Sharp-tongued, fearless, far smarter than he first appeared. Egg insisted on becoming Duncan's squire. Eventually, Duncan agreed. But Egg carried an unbelievable secret. He wasn't a common orphan. He was Prince Aegon Targaryen, the son of Prince Mikar, brother to future kings, one of the heirs to the Iron Throne, the future King Aegon V. The friendship between Duncan and Egg would become one of the most important relationships in Westerosi history. A prince learned humility from a poor hedge knight, and a hedge knight found purpose protecting a future king. At Ashford Meadow, Duncan entered the lists against seasoned knights. He struggled. He lacked expensive armor. He lacked experience. But he possessed something many nobles lacked: integrity. When Prince Aegon Targaryen, later nicknamed Aerion Brightflame, brutally attacked a puppeteer named Tanzel, Duncan could not stand by. Even though Aerion was a prince, Duncan struck him across the face. In Westeros, attacking a prince was treason. Duncan was arrested immediately. Rather than face execution, he demanded a trial by combat. But the prince refused. He wanted a trial of 7, an ancient form of trial where 7 champions fought 7 champions. It became one of the greatest trials in Westerosi history. Duncan's side included legendary warriors such as Ser Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, and Prince Baelor Braxpear, the respected heir to the Iron Throne. The battle was brutal. Prince Baelor defeated his enemies, but suffered a devastating blow to the head during the fighting. Though Duncan won the trial and his innocence was declared by the judgment of the 7, tragedy followed. Baelor Braxpear died from his injuries. His death altered the Targaryen line of succession forever. One courageous decision by a hedge knight had changed the future of the realm. Duncan and Egg continued wandering the 7 kingdoms. Their travels took them to castles, villages, and battlefields. They witnessed the growing unrest within House Targaryen. The Blackfire pretenders continued threatening the realm. Lord schemes for power. Old loyalties were tested. During these adventures, Duncan repeatedly chose honor over glory. He defended peasants against abusive nobles. He refused to exploit the weak. He questioned traditions that ignored justice. His reputation spread across Westeros. Many began calling him one of the truest knight alive. Not because he was undefeated, but because he lived by the ideals every knight swore to uphold. Years passed. Aegon eventually became King Aegon the Targaryen after unexpected deaths reshaped the royal succession. Unlike many kings, Aegon never forgot the lessons he learned while traveling with Duncan. He tried to improve the lives of the small folk, often bringing him into conflict with powerful noble houses. Beside him stood his oldest friend, Ser Duncan the Tall. Duncan became Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, the highest honor any knight could receive. The orphan from Flea Bottom had become protector of the king himself. His white cloak symbolized everything he had worked for since burying Ser Arlan beneath that lonely elm tree. The final chapter of Duncan's life remains one of Westeros' greatest mysteries. At Summerhall, King Aegon V attempted to hatch dragon eggs. Something went horribly wrong. A massive fire consumed the castle. Many members of House Targaryen died. So did Ser Duncan the Tall. According to legend, Duncan gave his life trying to save others from the flames. Among those rescued was the newborn Prince Aegon Targaryen, though the exact details remain uncertain. Even in death, Duncan embodied the vows he had lived by. Ser Duncan the Tall never conquered kingdoms. He never claimed the Iron Throne. He never rode a dragon. Yet his influence reached generations. Without Duncan, Ed may never have become the king Westeros needed. Without Duncan, the Targaryen dynasty, and perhaps the entire history of the Seven Kingdoms, would have unfolded very differently. He proved that true knighthood isn't measured by birth, wealth, or titles. It is measured by honor, courage, and a willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And that is why, centuries later, Westeros still remembers the greatest hedge knight who ever lived. If you enjoyed this journey into the history of Westeros, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. Who do you think was the greatest knight in the history of the Seven Kingdoms?